Right, welcome to the second of our Arctic Europe Tourism Cluster webinars. And today we'll be talking about the Australian market. And we've got some experts here to discuss the market. But first of all, before we do anything else, I'd like to hand over to Alexia, who would like to welcome everyone and just say a few opening words. Alexia, over to you.
Yes, hello everyone. I'm just going to say hello because I'm not really sure. Is it good morning, good evening appropriate? We have a lot of people from near and far today. For those of you who I have not met, my name is Alexia Diakaki, and I'm project manager for Arctic Europe Tourism Cluster, working for Arctic Norway Tourism Board. On behalf of the entire AETC team, I'm happy to welcome you, as Andy said, to the second webinar of this series. That is possible thanks to the collaboration with Nordic Tourism Collective. Thank you, Paul and Andy. And also, of course, our financiers, Interreg Aurora. Of course, you know, as many of our webinars, this is going to be recorded and added on YouTube. So please share it with your colleagues and peers. And if you have missed any of the previous webinars, you're going to find them on YouTube. We have two more sessions coming up, so I'm going to drop the dates in the chat very shortly. I'm not going to steal a lot of time because we have a lot of information and ground to cover. We have a very exciting market today. Many of you have been requesting more information about this market. So I'm really looking forward to hear from our wonderful panelists. And as always, please remember to ask questions. I'm not sure if the chat is activated, but we can use the Q&A below. And with that, Paul and Andy, the digital floor is all yours.
Yeah, thank you, Alexia. Yes, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whatever. Welcome to this webinar on the Australian market. So my name's Andy and my colleague Paul are here to sort of guide you through the next 45 minutes to an hour. But we have some experts here, which we've collected from Australia and other destinations. So maybe I'll just hand over to Paul, and maybe you could just introduce everyone very briefly and tell us all who we have with us today.
Absolutely. Hi. My name's Paul from the Nordic Tourism Collective, and what a panel we have for you today. Let me just ask them to wave after this. First of all, we have Kieran Healy here from 50 Degrees North in Melbourne. Hi, Kieran. Thanks for staying up so late for us. We also have Lisa Koopman from Nordic Travel in Sydney. Hi, Lisa. Lovely to see you. And we have Marit Nielsen here from VOS, part of the Tour Partner Group. Hi, Marit. And finally, we have Trevor Worth, who is a former owner of Sun City Travel in Brisbane, and as well being a Nordic expert. Hi, Trevor.
Hi.
There we go. And what a panel we have.
So we've prepared a very short overview of the market in very general terms. So we're going to share that now. And then Paul's going to walk us through that, which will just give us a flavour for the market and some of the indicators that Australia offer. And then we'll get into a discussion and we'll try and pick the bones out of the market. So let's do that right now. So Paul, over to you.
Thank you. Yeah, Australian market, very interesting for many. All I'm going to do now is kind of give you some key points, and we'll obviously share the deck with Alexia and all of you afterwards, but it's got some sort of snippets of information, and we'll obviously go into the details when we have the discussion shortly. Australian travellers are great spenders, something that's always interesting for all our suppliers. Average stay in destination 2.6 days, which is rather high compared to most global markets. They prioritize, especially the group's multi-city, multi-country itineraries. So they like to see a lot, and that can range from a 10-day trip to a 50-day tour. They like to stay in 3-star hotels, 32% 3-star, 41% 4-star. So they're kind of a little bit on the high-end accommodation side, and hotels is very much their preferred option. Peak traveling season is May to October generally for Australians, and they enjoy the independent groups, so the sort of local family groups, as well as being part of the sort of circuit touring programs with other English-speaking nationalities.
Just before you move on, Paul, just a note on the Australian economy. So it's got a population of about just under 30 million. So it's not a huge market, but it's an important market because of the nature of the Australians and the way the Australians travel. GDP growth is around about 2.6%, which is pretty good in the current circumstances. But inflation is 4.6, which is quite high. So the economy is doing okay, and I think sort of maybe our experts, when we get into that, can tell us more about disposable income and how the economy is affecting things at the moment, and where the Australians are prioritising their spend. But we'll go into that in some detail a little while. Sorry, Paul.
No worries. Next slide, Andy.
No, I'm just trying to do it, mate. There you go.
Cool. Yeah, total departures 1.8 million, which was 2025, which was 12.8% year-on-year increase. So still traveling very strongly, and this kind of post-COVID rebound has been very, very strong in Australia. But Asia still remains the dominant destination for Australians. Obviously, the near continent for them is much easier and more affordable. Travellers from Australia made 12.9 million outbound visits in 25, and 46.2 billion expenditure, which is pretty phenomenal, actually. Due to the current challenges with airfares and global economics, there is this a stronger focus for value, culture, experiences, affordability, which is why Asian markets are at the moment also doing extremely well from the market. Just a little bit on the seasonality, sustainable interest of the Australian markets. The Australians travel with real intent, and they prioritise value, access, and authentic experience over price alone. I think that's one of the nicest and most interesting point of the Australian travellers, which we'll discuss in more details. And the Australian tour operators and tourism providers think that Northern Europe is a fabulous opportunity to diversify the appeal to the environmental and culturally conscious traveller. So this is something that's a real trend in Australia. And there is this increased awareness of sustainable tourism and eco-friendly options from the Australian market, which is pretty interesting. Travellers are now looking at shoulder season trips, which is very good and very interesting for all of us to see, and hopefully for the Arctic region as well. Flight bookings May and June were up 58%, so that's a very encouraging sign. The Caucasian concept in Australia is very, very strong, and you can see increases in pretty much every Nordic destination from 24 to 25. So the concept of Caucasians is very, very well established in Australia, and they do like to travel with the train, so there's huge potential for train travel on the Australian market as well. And finally, just the main attractions for the Arctic region, which we'll obviously start discussing, which is, as with all markets, the magic of the Northern Lights, the snow, the winter activities, and of course, Christmas. In the summer, the cooler temperatures is very, very attractive as well. So the weather is very much in the favour of the Arctic, whichever season we look at. They love the outdoor activities and the authentic experiences. So both of those seasons are very attractive to Australian market. Favoured destination at the moment, Finnish and Swedish Lapland, Tromso and Lofoten. And the particular interest they have is in, besides the cruising and coastal voyages, is touring in the summer, expeditions. They want their culture, they're interested in innovation, design, and they love their food and cuisine, which I think we are blessed with up in the Arctic region. So that's just a little flavour, but basically the belief is that Northern Europe is emerging as a really, really high growth region for the Australian market due to the climate especially. And we're going to delve into this and have a look at the potential in a little bit more detail. Andy.
Thanks, Paul. Right, where do we start with that lot then? First of all, I'm going to ask our panel, anybody disagree with any of that? I mean, there's some sort of bold statements there about the Australian market. Lisa, I'm going to start with you. So Lisa, maybe you could just introduce yourself. You're on mute at the moment, but if you could just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about who you are and your experience, and then maybe just pick the bones out of Paul's presentation, and maybe you could add something to that.
Okay. Yes, I'm Lisa from Nordic Travel. We're based in Sydney, Australia. And we've been operating since for 1984, so we've been around a long time. I've been with the company for 10 years. Our focus is we're sort of providing a lot of options for the Australian clients with like escorted group tours, independent style traveling. We find that Australians, like as you mentioned, the Nordics region is very popular. In more recent times, in the last few years, we get a lot of good publicity through like the print media, the TV, YouTube, etc., that is drawing Australians more and more to this this area. And as you said in the presentation there, that Australians are looking for something a little bit different. We're very similar in some ways to the Scandinavian, the Arctic region in terms of we're very active. We enjoy, the diverse landscapes, and the experiences are a real high priority for us. And we also find Norway is an extremely popular destination for our travellers. Obviously, Finnish Lapland is high up there. Iceland is another all year round destination that's extremely popular. And Australians, they understand that it's an expensive destination, but they are prepared to pay for it. And I think it's a bucket list destination for a lot of Australians. And so when they come, as you mentioned in the presentation, they are coming for a long period and they want to see as much as they can. So, they're combining different destinations, which is really good. So, it's,
So just a question on the exchange rate, Lisa.
Sure.
So is it more expensive for Australians, or is the exchange rate a little bit more favorable? How is the exchange rate going?
Yes, I would say the exchange rate has been a little bit more favourable of recent times. Last year, sort of wind it back about 10 months, it was more favourable than it is now. But it's managed to sort of creep its way back up. So, I think, like the local currencies, the, Danish krone, the Icelandic krone, euro is yes, it's actually improved, I would say, in probably the last couple of months. So that sort of allows us to then pass on, reasonable prices for this area, and to, it's just a bit more affordable in that respect. So.
Well, I think that's fair enough, and I think that it's Scandinavia and the Nordic region is, by its very nature, not the cheapest destination in the world. I think that the exchange rate, if it helps in some way, that's important. So that's really good.
Absolutely.
But Kieran, I'm going to ask you a question now. So tell us about who you are. And just before we start, what I'd like to say, is that the elephant in the room here is the Middle East. And obviously the Middle East conflicts and the what's going on in the Middle East is having a knock-on effect to flight traffic through the Middle East and via the Middle East, which is obviously having an effect on the Australian market. I don't really want to get bogged down on that. I think what we want to talk about really is the potential of the Australian market, what the Australian market looks like, and really sort of what it looks like, medium term, longer term. I think the Middle East conflict is of today, and that's obviously having an effect on travel plans. But let's concentrate, if we can, on the bigger picture, if you like, and what Australia presents and the opportunities in Australia for the Nordic market. So, Kieran, over to you. So,
yes,
tell us about who you are, and tell us about Go North, and tell us 50 degrees north, and tell us why do you think, because you obviously are an Arctic specialist, why is the Arctic? I mean, Lisa sort of indicated that Australians like nature and the outdoor, but what in particular is it? And the second question, a supplementary question to that, is if the Australians travel in the winter, or they travel in the summer, or do they do both?
Sure. Great. Well, I'll try and answer all of that. Eddie, thank you. So, hi everyone, I'm Kieran and I'm from 50 degrees north. I'm relatively new to this region. I've been with 50 degrees north since the middle of last year, and really getting stuck into the Nordic region and really loving it. But if you don't know 50 degrees north, we operate tours small group tours and independent travel throughout the Nordic region, and have been doing so for around the last 15 years or so. Started as a really passion project from our founder Titsa and Jade back in 2010, and going from strength to strength. But I guess the one thing that really strikes me being new into this business is just how much of a bucket list destination the Nordics are for Australians. It is, I was at an expo talking to consumers a few months ago, and just the number of questions about the Northern Lights, about Christmas, really those two are the standouts really that we get continual interest in, because they are such stark differences to what you can experience here in Australia, and I think they're always going to be strong points for Australians. I think so. To answer your question, I think certainly our experience is that in the Nordic region, Australians are travelling in winter predominantly, though summer is definitely our second most popular season, and something we're putting a lot of attention into because it's got so much potential. Things like the Midnight Sun, but Lofoten and Troms are continually coming up as places of interest for Australians. So I think there's potential in a lot of in most seasons. I was interested to see the stats there about travel in May and June, and I'd agree with that. I think that's been our experience as well, and I'd say that Australians, while I think there's a certain group that are well educated about the value for money that you get, or that conversation in the Nordics, there's a new customer that's, I guess, coming to this region, that as it becomes a little bit more of a mainstream destination, who still takes some educating, I think, in terms of expectation versus reality, and what their money can buy them in the Nordics. But yeah, I'd say that the Nordic region, it's something that it has some really strong suits, but got a lot of potential in Australia to be popular for a lot more different reasons than just the Northern Lights and Christmas, I'd say.
That's good. So we can go into pick out what is popular and what those attractions are in a bit. So I'm now going to move to Marit. So good morning, Marit. You're in Denmark.
Yes, good morning.
You were working for VRS bracket, part of Tour Partner Group now, closed bracket. So you've been working with the Australian market for a few years, I guess. What have you noticed in terms of the interest in the Nordics? Is there anything you'd like to add to this debate? Have you seen a change in the seasons, perhaps, or the way your business that you've handled, the way that may have changed? But before you do that, just introduce yourself briefly and tell us who you are.
Yes, I'm Marit, and I'm dealing with many markets, and Australia is one of them. And I think my experience is more like some of our clients from Australia, they like the winter, and some of them like the summer. And
oh, you've muted, Marit. We can't hear you anymore.
Some of both. And I think that for me, everyone, of course, in Australia already knows that our seasons are so different. I mean, it can be totally dark in the north, almost 24 hours, and then in the summer you have sunlight 24 hours. So it's very, very different kind of products. But I agree with most what I've seen from Australia. I mean, cooking classes are really popular, and which I think is funny. If you're on a long round trip, there should be a cooking class minimum. And there's I also like this, that the programs, of course, either have to be long or you make combis, because you don't just come up for a few days when you go to Scandinavia.
Is that the case, Marit? Has that changed, or is that now the case that Australians come on these ridiculously long trips? Is that, or is it? How's that?
I don't. Sometimes we don't even know what they do before and after the trip we offer, because I know, at least from Lisa, that sometimes they do something totally different after they have been with us in Scandinavia. But also some clients in Australia also want us to do add-ons. They would like to go to Rovaniemi for 4 days, but there has to be something before and something after.
Okay.
Not
Right.
just Rovaniemi for 4 days like Europeans do.
Well, that's understandable because the distance is involved, I guess.
Yeah.
So
But there are more and more requests on the shoulder seasons. But I have to say, for Australian market, actually, it's a bit the same for US and Canada. I don't think it's a matter of price or anything, but May, June, and end of August, September, October seem to be more popular than July and beginning of August. So, but that's fine for us because in the summer we have so many others. So, but we can see we sell more, and we actually sell more like in what we call the shoulder seasons.
Okay, thank you, Mary. I'm going to come to you in a moment, Trevor, but I'm going to move back to Lisa now. I'm just going to ask Lisa a supplementary question because I'm intrigued by this notion of longer trips and all the rest of it. So there's an impression, shall we say, that the Australians travel on these crazy long multi-country, multi-destinational trips. Is that still the case, or is it now more sophisticated, to use that word? Is it more specialists? Are they doing single country trips, for example? Are they have you seen a change over the last few years?
Yeah, I think like Australians are generally, I'd say probably on average, coming for 3 to 4 weeks at a minimum. So and we find often, they might come over to visit family. They might go to the UK first, and then they go to Rovaniemi, or multi-country destination programs are very popular because sometimes we may have a limited time if we're doing, we've got a cruise and something else booked on either end. So they're just trying to see as much as they can. And like just the capital cities, Scandinavian capital cities are very popular. Combinations with Iceland, Greenland, all of those, just Faroe Islands, all of those destinations, the Baltics. So we find it's not uncommon for us to have a booking which may involve 3 different tour programs in that area. But we also hear from them that they're coming over to do skiing in Austria on the way to, Rovaniemi. So they sort of focus on doing their skiing in another country, and then they come for the experiences that Rovaniemi or any other place in Finnish Lapland can provide, yes, they're definitely combining a lot of different, it's not, I wouldn't say it would be common for them just to come and focus on one country. There's definitely, they view it as we're coming over all this way. We need to see as much as we can. That's the attitude, I think.
I understand that. That's fun.
Yep.
So, Trevor, welcome. Introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and what your relationship with Australia is. You used to live in Brisbane. You don't any longer, but you worked in the Australian market for many, many years. So is it a multi-generational travel? So the Australians you obviously, because it seems like it's in the DNA of every single Australian to go to Europe at some point, whether they're like 16 years old or they're 76 years old. Is that something that you can elaborate on? I mean, do you see it as a multi-generational travel? And particularly, what do you think is interesting about the Nordic region, which is attractive to Australians?
Right, I'll cover all those, and I think Lisa did a great job of covering all the elements as well. Sorry, just to introduce myself, Trevor Worth. I'm independent, so I work with other companies, helping them transition through different phases and review market conditions. So I started my Scandinavian Nordic journey in late 90s. And that was from the UK with a charter program and full program to the region, including Iceland to Spitsbergen and northern Norway. Charter program during 9/11, where we had to review whether to cancel or continue, because I was responsible for that. And that comes to the safety of the area. So I decided to go ahead and be very bullish in that period, for the simple reason that where is more safe on Earth than the Arctic? So it sold out. Therefore, it was just a case of understanding the attraction of the area and saying, people will go there. There's no threat.
Watch out for Mr. Trump.
Greenland.
And it's very much multi-generational. The big OE, the overseas experience, as the Aussies call it, they need to go and do that, whether it's a gap year or just when they graduate and go and have a good time. They may choose a certain budget area of Europe. They may come back to visit friends and family, add on, as other panelists are saying, with the where they go before and afterwards, we don't know. So that's always been a bit of a challenge. Some will go to the coach tours and river cruises in Central Europe and then add on. May even book through London for the Scandinavian element or go online. Obviously, city breaks are a bit different because that's so direct these days when they're adding it on. And then obviously the boomers are very comfortable with their coach tours, multi-area travel, and still want to go maybe even with their grandchildren to Lapland and join. So it could be, 3 generations going to Lapland.
So I think the interesting thing I find is that I'm going back to Kieran and ask this question. So it seems like the Australians are more discerning about what they do, perhaps, rather than, and I hope there's no Americans watching, but the American market is more of a sort of tick box market. If I understand that right, they're been there, done that type of thing. Whereas the Australians tend to be much more discerning about what they see and what they do. Is that a bland, sweeping statement?
Well,
it's a little bit.
I think there's some of that for the fact that, for a lot of these people, these trips are once in a lifetime, and they do their research, and they're going to, the presentation sort of said that Aussies spend big, but I don't think they spend stupidly either. They do really want good value for what they're paying for, and will be discerning and quite well educated on the whole, I'd say, Australian travellers. Having said that, I find that the Nordics is probably a region that's a little bit less familiar to a lot of Australians, and therefore, we also find that people are very much leaning on expertise in this region, and open to suggestion and the best things to do and the things that are going to give them that value for money and that experience, and want to be led a little bit on. I know that I'm going to have to pay a premium for this destination. What can I get out of it, and leading it into expertise. There's obviously some who will be less discerning, but I think on the whole, that's a fair characterization of a large group of Australian travellers.
So Marit, coming back to you. So you obviously handle groups and FITs in the region. So would it also be true to say that the Australians are more interested in taking the added extras, the excursions and all that type of thing? Is that something that they would build it into their stays because they want to experience more whilst they're actually in the region? Would that be a fair assumption?
Yes, for sure. Now, personally, I don't work with FIT. I only do groups, but you cannot just, like with a German, you just send a bus around. They only have a hotel and dinner, and they are very happy. It doesn't work like that. For Australian market, there has to be something, I feel, special every day. Something a little. It doesn't have to be totally different, but there should be something like Lofoten Museum, Viking Museum on Lofoten, or not just driving around looking at the mountains and stuff. So yes, I think they look. My experience is definitely that there has to be something new or something different in the programs.
Well, I suppose if they're traveling 12,000 miles,
exactly,
they want a more immersive experience. So I think the message which goes out to all of the SMEs that are perhaps watching this at some point is that dealing with the Australian market, they need to deliver that immersive type of experience rather than just saying here's a hook. It needs to be packaged up in that particular way. So Lisa, dealing with the Scandinavian market, I guess you do you deal direct or do you deal with the? I know you do work and have worked a little bit with Merit. Do you have a good service from? I mean, we're going to get into a few sort of basic operational issues here. What's the service delivery like in Scandinavia? Is there something there which perhaps is it outstanding? Is it perhaps lacking in certain areas? And when you put requests into hotels, for example, what type of do you get an immediate response, shall we say, or are you left waiting sometimes? And perhaps what can the suppliers do to ensure that they secure that Australian market going forward?
Okay. First of all, we have long-standing cooperation with a number of DMCs, which is great. And what they can provide to us is their package up the tours, like with multiple destinations included. And there are benefits for us to work with the DMCs. They're sort of putting all components of the package together, and also the relationship with them in terms of where things have gone wrong, not related to their package, but clients have had an issue with a flight delay, something like that, illness, whatever it may be. We rely on them to, deal with those on-the-spot issues, and having a local operator on the ground to deal with that is very important to us. And that's go back to COVID, but that was a time that we really relied heavily on our DMCs, and they really came through for us and helped us a lot. So I think we also work directly with some operators, so it's a bit of a balance between the two. I think there's definitely there's some things that we would like to maybe offer that we could look at. We find, as you mentioned before, like the travel peak period, May to October, we sort of find that we're lacking. We've got the people that want their handheld, we'll call them the escorted group crew, and then we've got the independent FIT travellers. So we find that Australians are travelling, they're moving out of the peak, and I would agree with that July, August is it's sort of slowing down in terms of bookings, and people are looking to travel outside that period. So having some more options to cater for all sort of clients in terms of escorted group tours and FITs is important. We find that a lot of escorted tours operate sort of for the peak season in the summer, like June to September or whatever it may be. But we do sometimes get requests for outside of that period, April, May. We do have some that operate in May. So it'll be good to kind of get some more opportunities to offer programs outside that period. And Australians are looking for value for money, and I think they do find that traveling June, July, August is extremely expensive. So I think and also in like autumn, we're getting a lot more in recent years, people wanting to travel in autumn. So that's really increased considerably. So and it just depends on the traveller. Some of them are not interested necessarily in the snow-based activities they want to do. Their main priority is to see the Northern Lights, so they want to be up there in autumn, which is fine. So and others, really want the full experience with the activities, so they'll travel in the winter period. But definitely on either side of summer and winter, I think Australians are looking outside of that, period to travel. In terms of the response time, it's really important to us because obviously we're in a different time zone for a start, and the expectations of the clients to get immediate responses, whilst you try to manage their expectations and explain to them that it may be 24 hours or 48 hours before we get back to them, the risk, of course, with that is then they become a little impatient. They've got ticketing deadlines to meet. They're worried about losing availability on flights, on their international flights. So there's a lot of pressure to sort of respond quickly. And, generally we do get that from, the people that we work with, the DMCs and the local operators, which is fantastic. But, on some occasions, we may miss out on potential bookings because we can't sort of get a quick response, but we understand that sometimes that's due to other factors, hotels not responding to DMCs, etc. So, yeah, so we are aware of all of that. But yes, the response time is very important to us in order to secure the bookings. So, yeah.
I think certainly that's certainly true. Yeah, with different markets, we've had different responses to that. But I think quick response to inquiries is actually something which is super important, particularly these days where everything's so instant and people can book something on their mobile in seconds. They have to if they have to wait 24 hours for a reply, then that seems outrageous. So it's a different, we're in a different world these days. So maybe we just take a break on this and go back to Trevor for a second. Is it possible for you to give us a sort of a very brief description of the landscape? Because in terms of tour operators and travel agents and wholesales and OTAs, and how does it work in Australia? Because in some markets you have a very clear delineation between tour operators and travel agents. In other markets, less so. How does it work in Australia? If you can just give us a brief sort of overview of that.
Yes, fair point. It's I've found it very mixed because of technology. And that issue we've covered already with, you may fly to England, do some things in Middle Europe and then to Scandinavia. So in Australia, I find that you've got some excellent operators locally, so they're very professional. At the other end in Scandinavia, of course, you have a very professional environment as well. Yep. So compared to other areas of the world for tourism, they're very reliable, very professional. So it's a solid base. I would say you've got your big chains in Australia, yes, and there's some vertical integration there, the flight centres, etc. In-house operators, wholesalers, trying to get that piece of the pie, and you've got your specialists. Then you've got your other operators like your APTs that are covering their coach tours, doing that in-house with their own sort of branding on the coaches. So it's a real mixed bag. And therefore the client has got a lot of choice to say, do I go online and look for that operator in the Arctic who will sell it to me directly? Yep, a ground handler. Or will I go through an operator in Australia or the travel agent? So I see it as a very mixed bag. I don't think anything is particularly very strong, and therefore the options are there to fit in. It's probably not a clear answer that you may have wanted.
I think that's a very clear answer. The fact it's a bit of a messy situation. It's not unlike the UK where you have some tour operators who do this, and then some tour operators who do that and this, and then others that don't and stuff. So no, I think it's important that everyone realizes, what the landscape looks like, because that's sort of key to who should I be working with? What's the relationship and who are these guys and all the rest of it. So tell me a little bit about. I'm going to go. Well, who's the best person to go to on this one? Kieran, why not?
Yes.
So Kieran, do you work with DMCs, or how does your business work at that end, and how do you get customers at the other end?
So I guess we've vertically integrated that side of things. So we've got three entities in our business, and our Norwegian entity also operates as our DMC. So they are working directly with the operators locally to put together the curated packages, the small group tours that we then sell here in Australia and in North America. We're distributing the product mainly through travel agents. I think that's kind of our experience, and my experience, generally in the travel industry here in Australia is that most of the most customers, particularly for these big investment holidays, you know, are comfortable going with a travel agent. You obviously have exceptions, and you have people who will go direct and online and these sort of things. But you know, for a destination, I think I mentioned before, such as this, that you know there is some real value in that expertise, because it's not in general, it's not a destination that necessarily people are really familiar with. You know, Australians. In a previous life, I worked selling rail tickets in Europe, and Australians go to France, Switzerland, and Italy like every other person's there, you know. But Scandinavia, the Nordics, it's not that sort of destination. So so there's that expertise that I think is called for. And in fact, I think a lot of the times when customers come in our door, you know, there's a real knowledge gap, I think, and a lot that can be yeah, can be suggested and led.
Okay, so full disclosure notice here. I used to work for Travel Corporation, which is one of the biggest sort of outfits. So we used to do these like multi-destination or multi-country tours around. And Scandinavia was nowhere to be seen.
Yeah, yeah.
I think there was one visit to Denmark. Maybe you might
Yeah.
have been a day in Copenhagen.
The Little Mermaid.
Sorry?
Yeah.
Yeah, the Little Mermaid.
Little
That's
Mermaid,
it.
that's right.
So you might spend one day in Copenhagen. You might go to, you might have a sort of, you know, a day to Troms and back type of thing, and all that sort of stuff. But it was very, very sparse. And I think that you know, it's good to see that the Nordic region is now becoming a region which people are actually discussing as an entity in itself, where people are, you know, going there, whether they're going for part of a tour or whatever, but at least it's now a consideration.
And you see a lot more, say, cruising around the area as well. That I mean, Australians love to cruise, and you know, we see a lot of business coming out of, you know, people starting or finishing a cruise in Bergen or somewhere like that, and then, you know, going up the coast and these sort of things as well. So so it's becoming more popular, and I think you know, we've seen it in a lot of popular culture lately. You know, Eugene Levy, obviously, there at Arctic Treehouse and Rovaniemi, and we had another TV show here that visited Lapland recently, and you know, I think that it's sort of getting into the public consciousness a little bit more these days.
Cool. So, Marit, you're in the middle, so to speak, as a sort of as working via VOS. Is there anything that you think that the suppliers should be offering more than they currently do? And how do we sort of get the Australians to travel? I mean, we heard already that, I must say, Lisa, I got a little bit confused when you talk about autumn, whether you're talking about Australian autumn or Scandinavian autumn. But anyway, I think so. Marit, I think, how does, you know, we're looking, we've got very busy winters, and we're seeing that the season is beginning to extend. But is there anything that the operators in the region maybe could offer that they're not offering, which you think might be more attractive in order to bring more people to the region, perhaps when they need it more?
First of all, I would like to say I've been in this company for 18 years, and the development, especially in the winter areas, it's been incredible. I mean, 18 years ago, you might only find 2 igloos, glass igloos, and now they're everywhere, and they're still investing, more igloos coming up. It's the same for Tromsø area. It used to be so boring there, and now there are several husky farms, reindeer farms. So I think the development, especially for winter, it's been incredible. Now it's Tromsø is too full, so now Narvik and Harstad are coming after it. Now they are going to put up loads of things in those areas they already have. So it's really incredible how the Nordic countries themselves have put up a lot of new things. So for all this about spring and autumn, I mean, I feel a little bit that Finland is a bit boring, I have to say. In the autumn, I mean, you can go and pick berries, and I mean, that can maybe be fine for individuals, but I could not imagine 40 people from Australia running around picking berries in a group. So I still think that they are trying to develop these times, and, you know, we can see the hotels are so much more interested in working with us in the winter if we will give them some more business in the autumn and the spring. So there are still things to do, But then when we talk about Norway, they have many more things because they have their cider farms, they have more and more like small cheese farms, salmon farms. You can do stuff which is actually all year round, but that also means that you can come in the shoulder seasons more. So it depends a little bit on the country. I still have sometimes personally a hard time if someone wants to have a group in November to Norway. If it's not for Northern Light, I feel a little bit sorry because they don't get the real thing.
Well, I guess this all comes back to the immersive nature of what the Australians are looking for. So just for any Finnish people watching, Marit is from Denmark. I just like to say that.
It's normal for two operators to cover the whole Scandinavia. It's not so big.
Paul, you want a quick question?
Yeah, please. I'm conscious that we've mentioned quite a lot about Norway, Lofoten, Svalbard, and Finnish Lapland, but maybe less about Swedish Lapland. Swedish Lapland has had some quite intensive marketing in Australia as well, and I just wondered maybe from our panelists if they could just mention what is most attractive about Swedish destination. Is it the fact that it's less commercialized maybe than the others and less crowded than the others, that it's maybe still got a strong point for Australians to go up there during certain seasons, or is it a quieter destination for Australians generally? Maybe Kieran, something maybe you've experienced this year is the demand for Swedish Lapland a little bit less, or are you finding it quite interesting?
Yeah, look. I think it is less compared to its neighbours, but it is different, and I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of it being a place that's a little bit quieter, a little bit away from the maddening crowds, and that's certainly when we have the most success selling Swedish Lapland is for people, I think, that don't want what everyone else is getting, and it can be a little bit more exclusive.
Exactly. I think the fact they've got lodges and retreats and some kind of more maybe niche, sophisticated products make it a kind of different segment in the market maybe. But good to hear that there is that interest for Australians as well to have that. Most really definitely. Cool. Mm-hmm. Sorry, Andy, I'll back to you.
So Lisa, if you had a sort of a wish list of that you're putting together, which you now have the opportunity to verbalize that wish list because you listed lots of people from the art division now listening to you. What would you say to people in terms of anything that they perhaps could do or offer, or anything they change or whatever it might be to help your business and obviously help deliver more business to the region? Anything particular that stands out?
Yes, one thing that stands out in particular is the demand for Australians to book early is a real issue. I'm not sure how we can get around this because we're always working so much further in advance than.
So what typically is the booking window, Lisa?
Yeah, well, for us, I would say, like, if we're talking about, for example, if we're talking about 2027. We've already got people asking about Christmas, which is crazy, but that's what happens. But usually, in terms of the most inquiries, they sort of commence really from September, for the next year. So even though the airfares technically they cannot book until 11 months in advance, Australians are already planning. Then they have concerns about Christmas. We're going to miss out if we don't lock this in now. So it's that sort of attitude. And I know that some operators don't like to work too far in advance, like direct operators. They like to sort of take one season at a time. Others do, which is fantastic. So for us to get the product out as early as possible is really important. We're also trying to produce our brochure, and we need that information so that we can sort of get that brochure out and on the shelves of the travel agents. So yeah, I think it's the time frame in which we can receive the product is really important.
I think that's interesting, and I think the one takeaway that I would take from that is because of the distance, people do plan early. And so if you want to, if you want to looking at getting into the Australian market, you need to make sure you got your rates and you got everything set up 12 months in advance, pretty much at
or
least.
more. Yeah.
Or more. Yes.
So Mara,
Yeah. And I mean,
you're just chipping in there, Mara. Is that something you're playing with every day?
I wish, but we simply do not have enough people to look so far ahead. It's a shame, but it's a fact. The operators we are even for this summer, we still need some more operators, even we are now so many in the office. So it is difficult. I agree with Lisa, it's a shame, but we are mostly not more than 1 year ahead.
Yeah.
And we can see many others are much more ahead of than we are, but it's difficult. It's so, yeah,
Okay.
it's not a matter of planning or that we don't want to do it, but when we do not have the time to do it.
But you can't do it. You're still reliant very much on the suppliers to provide those rates and to the everything.
That's very different when suppliers are also ready to book. I mean, if you send something to Iceland now for 28, I don't think they will respond before in 6 months' time anyway. So so because they are also, now the season is here and now the winter is here, and but we know very well that we need to do it, and we can also see some coming in front of us because we have not been booking.
Fair enough. No, that's good.
In advance.
Sorry, Andy, could I also just... Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, go for
add
it.
something else? No. I was just going to say that one of the other challenges for us is that a lot of cruise companies are publishing their dates so far in advance that we get clients that, I've booked this cruise and now I'm ready to book my land arrangements. So we're sort of like, well, we're not quite at that point yet, but that's just another thing I thought I'd mention. Yeah.
I would like to say if it's for FIT, I'm sure they can do it, and even they don't have the price, they can add a little bit. It's not so risky with an FIT, but if you want me to book 30 groups for 29, I would be a little bit more careful.
Okay, and then just I'll ask Karen the same question. If you had your wish list and you had the opportunity to sort of think, is there anything else that you would like or you'd see? Is there anything that leaps to mind?
Well, my number one thing would be the same as Lisa's, because I think that's been said. So if I was to pick a number two, I think really it's about trying to develop a little bit more competitive off-season pricing. I think it is very much the case that places like Troms, like Lapland, they've almost hit a bit of a price ceiling that Australians are comfortable paying for it. And I think if you have that, if we're able to expand the seasons out and have a little bit more competitive pricing, then I feel like we can really get some traction in this market in those shoulder seasons to an even greater extent, which I think benefits all of us, because there's only so many hotel rooms and only so much inventory that you can sell at any one time. And we want more people to see this beautiful region.
Brilliant, thank you. Paul, sorry, you want to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to ask Trevor a question, actually. It's regarding, I want to kind of contextualize the Nordics within Europe, because obviously there's competition not only within the Scandinavian market, but also within Europe. And Trevor, which other destinations in Europe are really attractive, competitive destinations for our Nordics and Arctic region throughout the seasons?
It may not be the answer you're expecting, but you've also got Latin America and Antarctica in there. And of course, they may go from Australia across to South America. So it may not just be within Europe. So, of course, you've got the Alps that will compete for the lakes and mountains. I guess people are branching out whether they initially look at Lapland, whichever country, just the Arctic area there, whether they start to look outside and go to Greenland, or obviously Iceland has been quite hot for a long time. So I think actually at the moment, with the world the way it is, it could actually be Antarctica with Patagonia that could actually be quite a competitor.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Very interesting. I think we sometimes forget about that, and obviously proximity-wise, they're a little bit nearer to the South Pole than the North Pole, so we shouldn't never take that for granted as well. So that's a really interesting one. Thank you.
Well, and on that theme as well, if you're talking about Northern Lights being, the most popular kind of calling card for the Nordic region, I mean, Canada and Alaska needs to be in that conversation too, as alternatives that, a lot of Australians travel to these destinations. So it's Europe you definitely have some competition, but I think for Australians, it's the world it needs to be looked at.
Okay,
Very
cool.
important. Thank you.
We got about 5 minutes left, so I'm not sure whether we haven't got any. Have we got any questions coming in? We got one comment here.
Yeah.
This is from Visit Alta, and they're saying, "Well, do you have any insight into what kind of activities and experience are being asked for in the summer?" So Australians are quite sporty people, majority of them anyway. So what type of experiences do you think local suppliers can offer? I mean, is it Marriott's very sort of dismissive of berry picking, for example, but are they looking at what are they looking to do? They're looking to get out in the nature, they're looking to be active, canoeing, cycling. Is that the type of stuff they're looking to do? Lisa, I'm out looking at you.
Okay. Yes, I think, hiking, kayaking, cycling, all of those things. Yes, Australians are by nature very active. So they are, they sort of like to just wander off, not necessarily on guided hikes, but just be in a destination where it has the opportunity for them to, perhaps take some trail hikes on their own steam. Yes, definitely. Just trying to think what else. Just like the hikes to, for example, Pulpit Rock. They're quite popular. Australians do also underestimate the Scandinavians and what they consider to be perhaps a easy hike may not be what we would consider to be an easy hike. So we're always sort of talking to clients about when they say they want to do this or that, and we're saying, oh, okay, well, do you realize that's like a 7 or 8 hour hike? You've got to determine fitness level and things like that. So yes, but any of those type of activities, active activities are very popular. Yep.
Fantastic. Anything add to that, Kieran?
Well, culture as well, I think, is an important factor. I think that's we do get quite a lot of interest in cultural experiences at that time of year. And the thing, I guess, the other thing to note with Australians in summertime or in this with warmer seasons is that they do love driving holidays and are not afraid to pick up a car and experience the region, by that means as well.
Yeah, and you haven't got any language issues either, have you? Anything like that?
Yeah.
Alexia, I'm going to ask a question.
Yes, thank you, Andy, and thank you, everybody, because this has been really, really interesting. And I just wanted to, I had the question, and I'm going to tie it out now with Kieran's reply about the cars, because we have mentioned bus groups, and we have mentioned a lot about individual travelers. And one of the conversations that we have had quite often in the project, actually, also with the different DMOs, when we are doing multi-destinations, how do we travel between one to the other? Of course, we have talked now about bus groups, but what would be the preferred method of transportation, and how much infrastructure and logistics are important for Australian travelers? Is it a fly and drive all year round? Is it mainly in the summertime? How do they deal with the snow conditions and the ice conditions? Is public transportation something that they value?
Whoa, we've got another half an hour here. Actually, we're going to go through that.
Well, you said on that presentation, you do say that Australians love trains, and I think that's probably true, that Australians do love trains and aren't afraid to use them. Maybe a little bit, as they might have a little anxiety for the first trip, but once they're off on trains, and we certainly have a lot of travellers who love that particular method. But driving as well, and I think particularly in the summer months, we wouldn't. And we certainly, as a business, don't book people to drive during winter seasons. we find, although there would be some competent drivers, it's probably too unfamiliar for us as a business to promote widely. So we do focus May to September on drives, but it's a really popular means. But all year round, I think rail travel is a really great option for people.
So Mary, you were nodding there. What do you want to say about driving cars and public transport? Do you have anything to add to that?
You said me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, about public transport, it's I think that we're using all those more and more, but sometimes also some Australians have a little bit too big luggages for the trains, because really in Scandinavia we are really bad at that. We don't have sometimes enough space, at least not when you bring a group into a train. But there are also ways of transferring the luggage by other means, so that's okay. So we try to more include it, like in the group travel. It can be one stretch one day, but for FIT, of course, it's much more. It is very popular actually, but it's not only Australians. It's from around the world.
Well, I think train travel and that is obviously something which we will discuss. And we will be discussing for years to come. Lisa, do you want to add anything to this?
Yeah, I was just going to say the self-drive packages are very popular in destinations like Iceland, Norway, Finland for us. And I guess with Iceland, it's not a complicated road system. So even though we are not driving the same side of the road that we would at home, Australians are quite confident in, driving a car. Particularly in Iceland, I feel that the self-drive packages, the number of bookings for self-drive packages outweighs the escorted group packages. So Australians are quite confident with that. And I think also they just like the idea of being able to do things on their own timetable is very attractive. Like with Scandinavia, the transport, the public transport, the trains, I feel that it's very connected. And when you're talking to clients about, there's sort of, how do I get from here to here and where do I go? And we do explain to them that it functions really well. There's good connections, assure them that there's nothing to worry about. And I think they love it. So, yeah.
Well, I think, the advantage, of course, is that it's not terribly overpopulated. So once you get out of the cities, then there's not too much traffic to navigate. So from a self-drive perspective, that's good. We've sort of run out of time, really. We've been talking for an hour, which I found most interesting, and I've certainly learned a lot. I think from my perspective, my takeaways from this is that if you want to sell into the Australian market, there's a couple of things you need to do. One is that you need to make sure that the products you offer are immersive and you offer the Australians a little bit more, because you have to remember that they've come an awfully long way and they don't want to be, they want to see a little bit more perhaps than someone, as Marit says, from Germany, because they've come all that distance. So be aware of the immersive nature of what they're looking for. I think that's extremely important. The second takeaway I would have is that they book early. So if you want the Australian to come, then you need to make sure you've got your rates and your pricing and all that stuff well in advance, at least 12 months or thereabouts, because they would be booking either an independent tour to the Nordics, or as Lisa suggests, it's part of something else. And so they've got part of it booked, and then they want to add the Nordic bit in. If you haven't got your prices ready, then you're not going to be able to sell it. And the third takeaway, I guess, is take a look or consider the pricing in the off season, because if you want to attract more, and I guess this applies not only to the Australian market, but to many other markets as well. If you want to get more business in the off, then you need to consider what that looks like pricing wise. So I'm done, I think. Paul, do you want to say any final words?
Yeah, nothing really to add, but I think the potential of the market for the region is really strong, because I think it's one of the only kind of international global markets that really seek that authenticity and experiences rather than just visiting destinations, as we mentioned before. And there is, I can hear that there is a lot of Australians also going to the Alps and skiing. And I think the skiing in the region can also be maybe focused on a little bit more. That'd be another discussion for our kind of ski operators and ski venues that we have up in the region. But I think that the potential is there. I think
when I lived in Australia, I know that it was cheaper to fly to the Alps to ski than it was to ski in Australia.
Exactly. Exactly, and
Yeah.
when we have the English-speaking instructors and stuff in the Nordic region as well, then I think there's huge possibilities there as well. But the potential is there throughout the year, and I think our panelists have really given a great overview of what it's all about, the market, and what possibilities there are for the Arctic region in the future.
Yeah, so final words. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Trevor. Thanks, Lisa. Thanks, Marek. Thanks, Kieran. Thank you, Alexia, for this opportunity. Just as a reminder, if I can find it, our next webinar is, when's our next webinar, Paul?
Next Friday. I'll be doing the Taiwanese, the Malay, Singapore, and Japan and Korea all in one long webinar next Friday.
So we haven't sent the invitations or anything out for that, but we're sort of putting the final touches to the schedule because it's got tomorrow. But we'll be sending it out very, very shortly. So thank you once again. Thanks to everybody, and see you next time. Thanks, Mel. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Bye.
See you later.